Greetings all, and welcome to the second part of the second episode of the V.T.P, or the Veteran Trainer's Perspective. Let's continue our analysis of shiny Pokémon colorations and take a look at some more interesting origins behind some of your favorite shiny Pokémon. Shiny Charizard and its Mega Evolutions seem to stand out strongly from its pre-evolutions, as while shiny Charmander and Charmeleon are a golden-yellow color, shiny Charizard and Mega Charizard Y are black, while shiny Mega Charizard X is green. While Charmander and Charmeleon in this instance are likely referencing yellow salamanders like the southern two-lined salamander, the black coloration of Charizard and Mega Charizard Y is likely a traditional overlay of the coloration of the classic black dragon archetype, while Mega Charizard X takes after the coloration of classic green dragons. This makes sense considering that Charizard and its Mega Evolutions are often likened to dragons, even though Mega Charizard X is the only one in the family that is an actual dragon type. This same type of black dragon coloration can equally be observed among shiny Haxorus, even though their pre-evolved forms merely show a color transition in the case of Axew, and a color inversion and shade change in the case of Fracture. Alolan Raichu is an interesting creature to study as a result of how its mannerisms, appearance, type, moves, and ability are different from traditional Raichu, but there is also a clever reference hidden in its shiny form that is not present in its normal counterpart. While shiny Pichu show a shade change, shiny Pikachu show a shade change or slight color wheel shift from yellow to orange, and normal shiny Raichu have a body color similar to certain types of kangaroo rats, the body coloration of shiny Alolan Raichu is significantly darker than normal. Given its base body color, it is likely that this color change is referencing the idea that their shiny form has a very dark tan, which is seen among other people in the Alola region and is typical of individuals that live in such sunny, tropical environments. The exact same change can be observed among the members of the Alolan Diglett family in their shiny forms, along with a color inversion of their nose color. While an exact explanation for the origin behind their shiny coloration may not be totally clear, it can be seen that the shiny coloration of the members of the Cleffa and Igglybuff families are practically identical to one another. It is quite likely that this is a reference not only to their original spatial proximity in Generation 1, when Jigglypuff could be found outside of Mount Moon and Clefairy inside of it, but also by the fact that they both require Moonstones in order to fully evolve, and were originally among the more abnormal of normal types, which would be complemented later on in time with the addition of the Fairy type to their type assignment. While most would assume that artificial Pokémon are of relatively recent origins, there are some that were originally created in much older times where the thought of making an artificial creature of any sort would have seemed foolhardy and impossible. However, time does not always meet technology as one might expect, and this is especially reflected in the members of the Magnemite family. These machines are actually nearly a century old, originally being created in the time of Nikola Tesla and actually built using his Tesla coil technology. Their shiny form hints towards this strongly, as they have a monochrome, almost sepia-like color palette that harkens back to older times. This same phenomenon can be observed in the shiny forms of the members of the Clink family, which have the appearance of being made out of old copper gears, with green oxidized noses instead of more modern metal ones. And this makes sense, as they too were originally built around the time Magnemite were. Though not forged in metal, shiny Mimikyu followed this same idea as well in regards to the notion of nostalgia, as their dark gray monochrome appearance harkens back to times before color in media like television, complementing the fact that the entire basis of their form is to exploit the nostalgia of times past to make themselves look cute and lovable. Following this, it can be observed that the shiny coloration of certain Pokémon that have metal bodies can be reflective of the inclusion of metals that are different from what they normally would be. For the members of the Onix family, while shiny Onix are merely a strong shade change from their normal form, shiny Steelix shine a golden color compared to the normal steel gray palette, as if they were actually made from gold. The shiny versions of the members of the Beldum family follow this same trend, as their normal metallic blue bodies with steel gray face cross and claws are colored with a silver body and gold face cross and claws in their shiny forms instead. Yamask and Cofagrigus in their shiny forms appear to have silver bodies instead of gold, with the change of their other primary base color from blue to purple being both a color wheel shift and a symbol of their societal significance, as purple was often associated with royalty in olden times. Durant show this to a slightly less vibrant extent, as their normally steel gray bodies are the color of copper in their shiny form. Shiny Hoopa have completely gold bodies compared to their normal forms, which is likely a reference to their penchant for stealing and hoarding the gilded treasures of others. Lastly, shiny Stakataka are a brilliant gold color instead of their normal drab gray color, which is possibly a reference to the idea of golden bricks or ingots, the primary way in which gold is stored as a monetary unit of currency across the globe. Furthermore, there are Pokemon whose shiny colorations may represent the idea of their bodily metals oxidizing over time. The members of the Aeron family in particular show this, as while the red eyes of their shiny forms are the result of a color inversion, the green coloration they display is likely due to the oxidation of body metals. The members of the Bronzor family show this even more prominently, as their bodies are made of bronze, a copper alloy, and thus over time their bodies would tarnish to a green color with exposure to air and moisture, just as one sees in the color of their shiny forms. Voltorb and Electrode have always been abnormal artificial life forms in being intentionally designed to resemble and mimic Pokeballs to deter thieves. But given that they were originally created by Silph Co., it makes sense then why their shiny forms are colored blue and white, as it makes them resemble Great Balls. This same kind of mimicry can also be observed among the members of the Fungus family, as while they too are red and white in their normal state, they are purple and white in their shiny forms. Seeing as they were the source behind the original design of the modern Pokeball, it is likely then that this color became a reference point for the eventual creation of the purple Master Ball. It might not look like it at first, but the shiny coloration of the members of the Shuppet and Duskull families are actually linked to each other. Originally, Shuppet and Banette were more common to encounter in Pokemon Sapphire compared to Duskull and Dusclops, while Duskull and Dusclops were more commonly found in Pokemon Ruby compared to Shuppet and Banette. As such, it is not so surprising to see then that the members of the Shuppet family have blue shiny colorations, while the members of the Duskull family have red shiny colorations. At least for the most part. Unfortunately, Dusknoir, which was introduced a generation after these families debuted in the series, has a blue-colored shiny. It is difficult to pinpoint exactly why this is the case, but it is possible that it might be a play on the Reaper Cloth item needed to evolve them. The item itself is a purple color, and you can make that color by mixing red and blue, potentially explaining this odd change in their shiny coloration. The members of the Weather Trio, namely Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza, might have different shiny colors in their normal states, with Kyogre and Groudon's colors being the result of a color wheel shift, and Rayquaza donning a black shiny coloration as another reference to the archetypical Black Dragon. Mega Rayquaza and both Primal Kyogre and Primal Groudon are colored a deep jet black color. The unified coloration of these three is likely meant to represent the shared history between the three in ancient times in these forms, as only through Mega Rayquaza's power were the other two in their primal states halted the second time they fought against each other, their shiny colorations in turn linking their special forms in both history and, as can be seen here, their very skin and hide. Looking at the members of the Vulpix family, we can see a striking difference in the way that shiny Vulpix and shiny Ninetales look. While shiny Vulpix can be justified in that they resemble the golden coat that is possessed by certain types of red foxes, shiny Ninetales are a dark purple color with blue at the tips of their tails. It is likely that this is a reference to their advanced extrasensory abilities and seemingly mystical powers, with the blue tips on their tails resembling will-o-wisps. Their Alolan counterparts do not show this as strongly though, with their shiny coloration merely being the result of a color wheel shift from blue to purple. This same kind of hint towards magical powers can also be observed in the shiny forms of the Fennekin family, whose dark purple coloration evokes a semblance of dark magic, and in turn labels them with a dark magician archetype in their color palette. Shiny Blossoms stand out strongly from their family in terms of the origin of their color palette. While Shiny Oddish resemble a green plant bulb, and Shiny Gloom and Vileplume combine this green color with the occasional yellowish color of certain species of the genus Rafflesia, Shiny Blossom have a pink-purple body color to them. The reason for this is actually quite clever. You see, in its original artwork, Blossom was depicted as having a purple body with red flowers. This eventually changed so it had a green body with red flowers in the games, but its shiny coloration was designed to be a reflection of how it was depicted in its early artwork, which is a nice nod to the overall origins of the creature as a whole. The members of the Geodude family, in both their normal and Alolan forms, have shiny forms that may look like the color of something fairly foul to some, but in truth, their shiny colorations are actually reflective of the material that they are made out of. In the case of shiny normal Geodude, Graveler, and Golem, they have a golden brown color to their bodies. This is likely a reflection of the fact that their bodies are partially made out of compacted mud bound together in their rocky matrix, which is why they are partial ground types. In the case of shiny Alolan Geodude, Graveler, and Golem though, their reddish-brown bodies are likely a reference to rust, or iron oxide, which makes sense since their bodies are highly magnetized and contain large concentrations of magnetite, a form of iron oxide, among other magnetic rocky materials. Drowsy and Hypno are infamous for being dream eaters, and this is reflected in their shiny colorations. While the choice of purple for their shiny forms might seem a bit odd, in reality, this is a clever choice in reference to their powers, as the color purple is often believed to psychologically represent not only the future and imagination, but, more importantly in their case, dreams. This might also explain why Munna and Musharna have a purple-pink body color normally, and for Drowsy and Hypno, it feels like a fitting color choice given their primary special attributes and choice of sustenance. The members of the Happiny family seem like cheerful creatures for the most part, but something is off about them in their shiny forms. While the shiny forms of Happiny and Blissey are merely shade changes, shiny Chansey has an odd white and green coloration that stands out. Though it's not entirely clear as to why they got this treatment compared to their evolutionary relatives, the vile and off-putting color combination may be a reference to the idea of rotten eggs, potentially turning green from the presence of bacteria and fungus due to an infection. It's a somewhat sad fate for them given the shiny colorations of their other evolutionary relatives, but it at least helps them stand out from their evolutionary relatives just as much as they stand out on the competitive battling scene thanks to items like Eviolite. Scizor is an interesting case where its shiny coloration may actually do it more good in the wild than harm. While shiny Scyther may only demonstrate a shade change and some minor color transitions in parts of their limbs, shiny Scizor ditched their traditional red coloration completely for a green and yellow one not that dissimilar from that of a normal Scyther. It is possible that this coloration is designed to actually make them better hunters compared to Scyther for once, since this sort of coloration would work as great camouflage in tall grass, and in turn help to mitigate the loss in speed that normally comes with their evolution. Alright, this next one is not one that I really support completely, but it does serve as a piece of crucial evidence behind one of the most well-known Pokemon fan theories. For some reason, both Ditto and Mew not only share similar base body colors, but, more importantly, share the same blue shiny coloration. This is interesting because it helps feed into the idea that Ditto are actually the result of failed attempts to clone Mew, supposedly sharing with them only their base DNA and the ability to transform into other creatures. I will be getting into this relationship more in a future episode of the V.T.P, but for now, it is an odd quirk that does seem to support a link between the two. the members of the massive Eevee family are unique because their shiny colorations are actually linked to their debut generations in regards to how their shiny forms were originally created. While shiny Eevee itself is a reference to the color of the silver fox, its first three evolutions, Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon, all have shiny forms that were created by color wheel shifts. Espeon and Umbreon, which debuted in Generation 2 on the other hand, are the result of having parts of, or their whole body, color inverted. Leafeon and Glaceon, which debuted in Generation 4, are the result of shade changes. And Sylveon, the most recent addition to the family as of Generation 6, had its shiny form created from a simple body color swap. It's kind of interesting to see the links within this family in this fashion, seeing how their origins from a temporal perspective are related, and it definitely makes the family different in that regard from any other known Pokemon family. Mewtwo has always been one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, but its shiny form seems to stand out as an odd color choice. Going from purple to green seems like an abnormal shift. But in truth, there is a clever answer to this. Mewtwo is, of course, the clone of Mew, created through mutation via repeated genetic recombination, and in turn is a sort of corruption of its base form. Its shiny colors reflect this, as its green shiny coloration can effectively be seen as a color wheel shift relative to the blue body coloration of shiny Mew, cementing its abnormal origin both in story and in its very sprite and model appearance. Bonsly and Sudowoodo possess bodies that are designed to look like trees, but the fact that they are not actual trees means that their green coloration makes them stand out like a sore thumb as the seasons change. Well, while their shiny colors might not help them much in the winter, the slight shade change they undergo and the change in color of their bulbs from green to red does give them the appearance of a tree in autumn, providing them a much-needed disguise for the colder autumn months, and helping them to stay hidden a bit more effectively than normal, especially considering that there are some trees that have red leaves to begin with. Slugma and Magcargo are probably some of my favorite shinies, if only because they speak to me as a geologist. On the one hand, shiny Slugma have a silvery body color that is very reminiscent of hematite, a common mineral that can be formed in cooling lava on the surface of the earth. On the other hand, there is Magcargo, whose purple body coloration may initially seem to be very odd and make little sense, but in truth, this is referencing something very unique and rare. As it turns out, there is such a thing as purple lava. It's called a cerulean eruption, and it results from the burning of escaping sulfur gas from lava. This rare type of eruption is primarily observed in Ethiopia, and while the flames that come off of the lava look blue, the lava itself is actually purple, hence why Magcargo possess this abnormal shiny coloration. Ho-Oh is recognized across the globe for its brilliant coloration and its link to the rainbow, but there is something even more to its shiny form. The choice of red, orange, and gray might seem like an odd combination to see on a normally rainbow-cloaked creature, but I believe that there are two references hidden in this coloration. For one thing, the red and orange markings on its body likely represent something akin to the setting sun, which would make sense since the sun's light is needed to create rainbows, and Ho-Oh's fire-type assignment plays with this theme strongly. The gray color could also be included in there to a minor degree, but I think that it alternatively represents the color of ash, as a reference to the sacred ash item that the birds are always found to be in possession of. Makuhita and especially Hariyama have some of the most vibrant and odd shiny colorations out of all fighting-type Pokemon, and while it is difficult to assign an exact origin to the colors themselves, it can be said that the vibrant nature of the colors, especially the red coloration, is very similar to the kind of vibrant colors seen among the embroidered, high-class keshomawashi worn by sumo wrestlers in the uppermost two divisions of their profession, attesting to their proficiency as combatants and their bodily similarities to said professionals. Regigigas' shiny form seems a little gaudy, but as mentioned before, the color purple once symbolized royalty and the wealthy. As such, given that Regigigas are effectively the creators of Regirock, Regice, and Registeel, and thus their effective rulers, it makes sense then that their shiny forms would possess such a regal shade of royal purple. Riolu and Lucario possess fairly unique forms that are hard to pinpoint to any one particular type of creature, but it is widely believed that they are at least partially based off of the Egyptian god Anubis. Now, this is all well and good, but is there any proof of this to be found? Perhaps there is, oddly enough, in their shiny coloration, for if you take a look at shiny Lucario in particular, and then compare it to this depiction of Anubis, it becomes quite clear that the color scheme of their shiny form, which otherwise looks quite odd, may in fact be the key to proving this design origin. Rotom have many forms that take on a wide variety of shapes and colorations in their normal states, but interestingly enough, shiny Rotom have the same base colors in all of their different forms. It is quite possible that the reason for this is that the color palette of their shiny form is closely based off of the coloration of Pulseman, another video game character created by Game Freak in the past, who also shares a knack for using electricity as a weapon. Quite the pair, wouldn't you say? Although it may very well still be alive and definitely kicking, it goes without saying that Kyurem has definitely become a shell of its former self as a result of the splitting of its body and powers and the creation of Reshiram and Zekrom, with some likening it to a zombie, given the glazed over look in its eyes that it displays in its normal form. Well, in its shiny form, aside from a slight shade change to the ice covering its body, it is noted that its eyes have turned red, and its hide a mottled green in its base form. While in its Absol fusion forms, its body darkens to a dead gray color, while also partially copying the shiny coloration of its other constituent members. In a way, this can be seen to be akin to the rotting, darkened skin of a corpse, which, combined with the red eyes, definitely does give the beast the look of a zombie, making it all the more terrifying to even look at. Sometimes, stereotypes can leak into the designs of certain Pokémon, even to the point where it affects their coloration. This is definitely the case when looking at the shiny forms of the members of the Froakie family. While shiny Froakie and Frogadier may only be the result of a shade change, shiny Greninja in both its normal and Ash Greninja forms is a jet black color. Given their mannerisms and combat attributes, this is a clear reference to the fact that they are ninjas, with black being the stereotypical color assigned to ninjas in pop culture. Funnily enough though, this is actually inaccurate, as real ninjas were more likely to be seen wearing colors like dark blue. But stereotypes tend to win out over the truth, sadly. Such is life. It can be fun to see how the visualization of something through a medium other than air can impact the way that an object or lifeform looks. Shiny Binacle and Barbaracle are a great example of this, as while their normal colors show off prominent brown colors, their shiny forms have red coloration to parts of their limbs and faces and, more importantly, are tinted a shade of sea green. This might be a bit confusing until you realize that many barnacles, especially the goose barnacles that these creatures are based off of, tend to dominantly live in the water. And if you go into the water in certain conditions, it can give everything you see a greenish tint. As such, the visual trickery in their shinies is designed to make you think that you are submerged underwater, right where these creatures would otherwise normally be found in the wild. Amora and Aurorus are normally colored a pleasant shade of blue that is supposed to symbolize their icy powers, but their shiny forms are a bright white instead. No, this is not the result of some strange form of albinism. Instead, it is likely that this color was chosen for their shinies as a reference to snow, as these creatures are among the few that could potentially possess the Snow Warning ability, which summons snowstorms and hailstorms instantaneously upon them entering the battlefield. The members of the Phantump family are noted for being the result of a lost spirit binding to a tree stump before eventually being reincarnated into a living tree creature, and normally their bark is a dark brown color. However, in the case of their shiny forms, their wooden bodies are a bright ashy white color and their leaves are red instead of green. This color scheme was likely chosen so they would resemble birch trees, with the red leaves indicating that it was likely autumn at the time the stumps were originally possessed by Phantump. Pumpkaboo and Gourgeist have spooky colors to them as well, as their normally brown and orange bodies are more black and purple in their shiny forms. This does not seem to really have any special function, but it does make them look much more like spooky jack-o'-lanterns and gives off a ghostly vibe that is much more in tune with their behavior and attributes. While the members of the Poplio family might not initially seem to have interesting shiny forms, in truth, their colors are quite cleverly done. Although it is noted that these creatures do have both male and female forms, well, at least in the case of Primarina, it is quite evident that a more feminine form was taken with their designs. While their main body colors undergo a basic shade change in all cases, we also see the emergence of frilly pink colors in them as they develop from Poplio to Brionne and finally Primarina, and at the end, we also see that the hair of Primarina changes color to yellow in their shiny forms, making them look like a blonde woman. It's a clever nod towards their basis on the Selkie, but at the same time, I think it also shows where the heads of some of the developers may have been at the time, if you know what I mean. Have you ever been to the beach and wondered why the sand is the brown-white color that it is? Well, that's because it's mainly made up of felsic minerals like quartz. However, it is possible to find beaches that have black sand, which is made from more mafic rock material, such as basalt. This is in turn the reason why shiny Sandygast and Palo Sand are black. Since the Alola region is essentially supposed to represent the Hawaiian Islands, which were created from underwater volcanism and the eruption of mafic material, it makes sense that some parts of the islands would contain black sand, thus explaining the shiny forms of these ghostly creatures. Sometimes Nintendo can't help but sneak a few references to their various franchises in other franchises, and Bruxish is a prime example. While it looks gaudy in its bright colors on its own, its shiny form possesses an even more abnormal color palette that doesn't seem to correspond to anything in nature. In truth, though, this is actually a direct reference to another toothy creature known for using its teeth to inflict serious pain on anything that gets near it. The piranha plant. Such toothy maws. They must have really good dentists, I would imagine. Drampa is probably one of the strangest dragon-type Pokemon out there, but its shiny form hints towards part of the reason why it looks like an old man. While normally green in color with white eyebrows, shiny Drampa have a golden color to their scales with black eyebrows, which gives them an almost human-like appearance. This is done on purpose, as it directly references the fact that Drampa is based off of Zulong, a dragon god with the face of an old man who is meant to ensure safe passage of deceased humans to the afterlife, which is in turn directly reflected in the kind and caring nature that Drampa displayed towards others. Delmies are definitely one of the strangest Pokemon out there, possessing a unique mix of grass and ghost-type traits and with an apparent body that is mostly just a decoy. The only part of them that is actually alive is the algae that comprises their true body, as the rest of their form is made from discarded pieces of old wooden boats. Well, their shiny form takes this mimicry one step further, as the change of color in their true main body is meant to reference red algae, while the rest of their form looks to be from a modern metal boat with metal components. I suppose some Delmies are finally getting with the times and starting to take advantage of more modern-looking materials to attack and fool others these days. I have to admit that when I was putting this list together, probably the most fascinating example of clever design I came across was in the shiny forms of the Jangmo-O family, whose otherwise gaudy combination of pink and gold colors was baffling to me before I really took a look at them, and what I found was quite extraordinary. Despite how bizarre their shiny forms may look, what we are actually seeing here is a beautiful fusion between Japanese and Hawaiian cultures in their color palette. On the one hand, in Hawaiian folklore and symbolism, the color gold is one of the entire human, with precious life being seen as pure as golden life. showing that these creatures are revered as pure in spirit and intentions, which they are as fighters. On the other hand, the pink coloration on their bodies most likely is referencing the sakura, or the Japanese cherry blossom. This is important because the blooming of the tree is said to represent and honor the samurai that had fallen in battle at the prime of their life. The plated armor of these creatures, in terms of its appearance, does show similarity to samurai armor, and their mannerisms very much match the culture of the samurai as well. I found this unique fusion of cultural ideals to be quite refreshing, and in my opinion, it definitely lends a great deal of respect towards the otherwise abnormal coloration of their shiny forms. Color in Hawaiian culture can also prove to be quite important when looking at the tapus. While these creatures all have different base colors normally, in their shiny forms, they all have the same jet black coloration adorning their outer bodies. In all reality, the reasoning behind this is actually quite simple. In Hawaiian culture, the color black means the opposite of something. As such, it can be seen that their shiny coloration is literally the opposite of what it normally should be. Pretty simple, right? The members of the Cosmog family have a fairly interesting astronomical association with their evolved forms' shiny forms. While Cosmog and Cosmoem show what could be a reference to redshift and blueshift in their shiny colors, or even just a simple color inversion, both shiny Solgaleo and shiny Lunala are adorned with a vibrant blood-red splash of color to their forms. While this might make them look quite frightening, the reason for this is pretty easy to understand if you know what they are based off of. Solgaleo is supposed to be an emissary of the sun, so its red coloration is a reference to the blood-red setting sun, showing the rise of the moon in the sky and the fall of the sun. On the other hand, Lunala is supposed to represent the moon, so its shiny form is a clear reference to a blood-red moon, which is created during a lunar eclipse in which the moon is caught in the shadow of the earth, created when the sun is on the direct opposite side of the planet. In this way, their shiny forms show a moment of general dominance of one over the other, and in turn help to link them together beyond the lore that otherwise binds them together. Poipole and Naganadel take their bee-like appearances to a new level with their shiny forms, which replace their purple body colors with ones that are much more vibrant. As one might imagine though, there is a reason for these color changes. The dominantly white form of shiny Poipole is designed to represent the larva of a wasp, while the coloration of its evolved form, Naganadel, is supposed to represent that of an actual wasp. Blacephalon's brilliant colors and mannerisms tend to invoke thoughts of clowns in the minds of more than a few, despite the fact that they are more well known for decapitating themselves and throwing their heads as explosives. Well, the former note is where their shiny coloration comes into play. As it turns out, in clown culture, the traditional sad clown is among the oldest and most revered of positions due to the dedication and work needed to make the act work. Well, the color blue is often associated with sadness, so for shiny Blacephalon to be blue, well, I think you can put 2 and 2 together on this one. And lastly, an easy one, Zeraora. It's pretty obvious that this kitty is based off of a large cat, and its shiny coloration grants it a white coat of fur. Well, there are quite a few big cats with that kind of color. But you know what it reminds me the most of? A white tiger. And I think the similarities speak for themselves. Well, thank you all for tuning into this second analysis video on the origins behind shiny colorations. Next time we meet up, we'll have an entirely new topic to tackle, so stay tuned and keep alert for when the next episode of the V.T.P. comes out. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description.
Yeah, no.
With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.